friends, welcome to the June 2024 EBT update. We've got some exciting news about 43 new EBT discounts, some big news about how the new Farm Bill could impact your benefits, and some important updates for SNAP shoppers in certain states. So let's dive right in. And if you're wondering about those extra summer EBT benefits that should be coming to you, just hold tight. Our team is still following up with certain state governments to get that schedule for you. We've almost got it complete, and I'm hoping to bring it to you next week. So make sure that you're subscribed to our channel so that you don't miss that next update. For now, though, let's talk about something that affects all EBT users in all states, and that is the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill sounds boring, but it's a massive piece of legislation that governs a wide range of programs, including SNAP, WIC, SFMNP, and others that we talk about on this channel. The Farm Bill is basically the rule book for food assistance in the United States. It covers just about everything. This bill is supposed to be renewed every 5 years, and the deadline was last September, but lawmakers are still negotiating and still working out the details, so they've been extending it, and it is supposed to be finalized by September of this year. Well, we're finally starting to see some movement on that, and it's not all good news for EBT users. There is some good news. There's some really good news. There's also some really not so good news. The House Agriculture Committee has just advanced their version of the Farm Bill, which is a whopping 900 pages, and it outlines $1.5 trillion in spending. Obviously, it covers a lot of different farm and agriculture programs and all sorts of things. But we're not going to get into all of that right now. It would take too long and it would be really boring, honestly. So we're just going to focus on the parts that could directly impact your EBT benefits. After all, that's what you're here for, right? Now, some lawmakers have said that this version of the Farm Bill includes the largest financial cuts to SNAP in 30 years. But before we get into the bad news, because I really hate bad news, let's highlight some of the positive changes first, because some of these are good, and they could make a real difference for you and your EBT benefits. So personally, I think this first part is the best. The new Farm Bill includes a proposal to make the Elderly Simplified Application Project, or ESAP, permanent. You may already be familiar with ESAP because I love to talk about it all of the time. But for those of you who haven't heard of it before, it's a program designed to make applying for SNAP benefits easier for older adults and people with disabilities. It simplifies the application process in a few key ways. It uses a shorter, simpler application form. It relies on electronic data to verify your information so that you don't have to gather as much documentation. It also allows you to receive benefits for up to 3 years without having to recertify. Currently, ESAP is just a pilot project, but if this version of the Farm Bill passes, it could become a permanent part of SNAP. And that means that if you're 60 or older or you have a disability, you could enjoy those benefits for years to come, which would make it so much easier to access the food assistance that you need. I'm personally really excited about the possibility of ESAP becoming permanent. This program has already helped so many people, and it has the potential to make a real difference for many, many more. It's absolutely a program worth keeping. Now, the new Farm Bill also aims to make SNAP more accessible for individuals who have previously been convicted of drug offenses. Now, in the past, a drug conviction could permanently disqualify you from receiving SNAP benefits even years after you'd finished serving your time. This new bill seeks to change that. It would allow more people with past drug offenses to qualify for SNAP, giving them the opportunity to get back on their feet and get the food help that they need. This is a big step, and it could really help people get a second chance. A lot of people have said that the SNAP ban is basically a secondary punishment or a double punishment for people who have made mistakes. So changing this would align with the policies of many states because many states have already taken steps to loosen those restrictions anyway. Now, there's also some promising news for those of you who love fresh, healthy food. The new Farm Bill aims to boost a program called GusNIP. Now, I talk about GusNIP programs all the time, but I don't necessarily use that term when I describe them. GusNIP is the Gus Schumacher Nutrition Incentive Program, and this is basically the funding program that helps keep things like Double Up Food Bucks running. It also is responsible for a lot of the produce prescription programs that we've talked about. So anyway, that's GusNIP in action, those programs. So this bill proposes giving GusNIP a big funding boost, which could mean that these programs could become available in even more places. They could become a lot more robust. There could be a lot more help offered there, which would be great. You guys know I love double up food bucks. And here's the really cool part. One of the things I read said that it wouldn't be just for fresh produce anymore. You would also be able to use those benefits to buy frozen, canned, or dried fruits and veggies, which would give you more flexibility in making those healthy eating choices all year round. Plus, the bill also says that it wants to make GusNIP fairer for everyone. Some areas don't have those programs right now because they can't afford to match the federal funding like they're required to, but this bill could potentially change that, which would bring healthy food incentives to even the most underserved communities. I personally think this is a fantastic development, and I'm really excited to see how many people could get help with that, because I know eating healthy on a budget is a real struggle for a lot of us. So now let's talk about some other good news, and this one is for folks who are working or studying while receiving SNAP benefits. The new Farm Bill has some proposals that could make it easier to balance work and benefits. One key change is that it aims to protect the income of young people who are currently working or going to school. Under the current rules, that income of the household members under age 22 can sometimes affect the amount of SNAP benefits that the entire household receives. This new bill would change that so that young people can work and go to school and build their future without worrying about reducing their parents' or their family's benefits. Now, the bill also proposes excluding certain types of income, like earnings from SNAP employment training programs, when calculating SNAP eligibility. This means that if you're working to improve your job skills, you wouldn't necessarily be penalized with lower SNAP benefits as a result of that extra income. I think that's great because I feel like there's always been a little bit of a conflict there in those SNAP employment programs. But there's also more. The bill also wants to increase the amount of earned income that SNAP households can keep without it affecting SNAP benefits. This means that for those of you who are working, you could earn more money while still receiving food assistance. Sorry, I'm tripping all over my words. Overall, those changes are aimed at making SNAP more supportive of work and education. And we've seen those goals becoming increasingly prominent in some of the rule changes we've seen in recent years. So if you're working, studying, or planning to do either of those things, this is definitely something to keep an eye on. There is a little bit more good news in here. We're almost to the bad news. But the Farm Bill does tackle hunger from several different angles, which could make food more available to those who need it the most. So first, it wants to give a major boost to community food projects. These are programs that provide meals, education, and support right in your neighborhood. More funding could mean more food pantries, community gardens, and nutrition classes, making healthy food easier for everyone. It also recognizes the vital role that food banks play in fighting hunger, so the Farm Bill proposes increasing support for food banks by providing them with more food, resources for transportation, and even storage, and some programs that would connect them directly with farmers. This is a big deal because food banks are often the lifeline for families struggling to put food on the table. And I've heard from a lot of you lately who have been very underwhelmed or disappointed by what you've seen at the food bank. So this could hopefully help to fix that. Another thing that the Farm Bill wants to accomplish is to make sure that our seniors have access to fresh, nutritious food. The Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program could get a boost in funding and offer a wider variety of options. I've heard from so many of you about how much you love this program, and I love this program, so this is definitely something worth celebrating. Another thing it included was that they want to make sure that healthy food is available everywhere. So they're talking about expanding programs like the Commodity Supplemental Food Program and even pilot testing a new food box delivery program for areas that don't have easy access to grocery stores. So all of that sounds like a lot of good news, right? I like good news. I really like good news. I don't like bad news. And unfortunately, this version of the Farm Bill isn't all food boxes and happiness. There is some really serious cuts in here that could seriously hurt families who rely on EBT benefits. I know many of you are worried about these proposed changes, and I am too. I don't like to lead with negativity, but I am very worried about this. It is really important that you understand how this could affect families who rely on EBT benefits, especially because this current version of the Farm Bill is just a proposal. Nothing is set in stone yet. There is still time to make your voice heard. You can call or email your representatives in Congress and let them know how these proposed changes would affect you and your family. You can always find the contact information for your elected officials in Congress at congress.gov. Now, as we move into the scarier parts of this update, I just really want to reinforce that, because I know I say it a lot to reach out to your elected officials, and I know that most of you probably don't. The process can feel overwhelming, but when your benefits are on the line, sometimes it's important to do that hard thing and reach out anyway, because if you don't, your voice isn't heard, and some of these things could come to pass, and they could be pretty bad. So, first off, we've got some potential food restrictions. The Farm Bill talks a lot about creating a stronger connection between health and food assistance programs, and that sounds good on the surface, right? But what it means for you and your EBT card might not be so great. It probably means changes to what you're allowed to buy with your SNAP benefits. We've seen a lot of different politicians rallying for this. For the first time, the Farm Bill specifically mentions diet-related chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease, linking them to issues like military readiness and healthcare costs. I don't want to alarm anyone, but the way it reads, it seems to indicate that this could open the door to more restrictions on what's considered an eligible food for SNAP purchases. Some lawmakers have been pushing for stricter rules on sugary drinks, snacks, processed foods for years. This bill could be their chance to make those changes a reality. Now, healthy food is great, but we also know that it's a lot more expensive, right? Every time I read an article about how SNAP isn't correlated to healthier outcomes, I get so mad, because you can't really buy a lot of healthy food on $23 a month. So I feel like they're kind of missing the point, but I'm going to try not to rant in this video, because I know I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of this. So, the bad news doesn't stop there. This bill also aims to tighten up the rules around SNAP payments in a few ways. It wants to eliminate any tolerance for errors in SNAP payments, meaning that even the smallest overpayment would need to be repaid, even if it's not your fault. This is a big change from the current system, where states have some flexibility in dealing with minor errors. And it gets worse. This bill specifically references the Snapback and Accurate SNAP Payments Act, which some of you might remember me talking about last year. You may remember when Social Security was clawing back thousands of dollars from low-income seniors and people with disabilities, and then shortly after that, somebody had the bright idea that the SNAP program should do the same thing. This act wanted to make you pay the money back if the state made mistakes calculating your SNAP benefits, even if it wasn't your fault, which can be very painful for low-income families. Additionally, the Farm Bill also proposes new measures to prevent fraud and abuse, which again, sounds great, but the way it reads, they want to create stricter verification of eligibility, especially for families that haven't used their benefits in a while, or for those with members who own or work at authorized grocery stores and retailers, which could cause some problems. Anyway, this version of the Farm Bill also allows states to make more decisions about the implementation of certain aspects of the program. Now, I know I always get a lot of feedback on this, because it's frustrating when so much of the content of our videos is state specific. But expanding state choice is going to make that an even bigger issue going forward if this version is passed. But all of that is not even the worst of it. One of the biggest concerns is that the House Agriculture Committee wants to change how SNAP benefits are calculated. You see, SNAP benefits are based on something called the Thrifty Food Plan. Now, the government has 4 different estimates of how much it costs to buy a healthy diet for a family of 4 if you go grocery shopping. And there's 4 different plans at 4 different budget levels, and the Thrifty Food Plan is the cheapest of them all. Now, the current wording of this Farm Bill contains some very interesting language about the Thrifty Food Plan. Right now, that's what they use to calculate SNAP benefits. And while the parts of the Farm Bill that I read didn't explicitly mention cuts to SNAP benefits, the context suggests that this could be a veiled attempt to reduce spending on the program. The new bill says that only Congress, not government experts, should be able to decide when and how much SNAP benefits change. It also says that the Thrifty Food Plan should be cost neutral, which seems to imply that it would not increase over time. They want to limit the authority of government experts to adjust SNAP benefits based on real-world data like food prices and inflation, which could lead to a situation where benefits don't keep up with the cost of food. And this would effectively reduce the value of SNAP benefits over time, making it even harder for people to afford food. And it's not easy right now, so that is not a problem we really need. Sorry, I don't usually get upset on videos. This is why I don't like to do lives, because if I get emotional about something, I can just edit it out. But when I'm live, I can't do that. So sorry, guys. Whew. Okay. Clearly, this could be a big deal for EBT users. We already know that SNAP isn't enough to cover groceries right now. And if the amount of SNAP benefits isn't updated regularly, it could mean that they won't adapt to the rising cost of food, which could make a bad situation worse. So this is definitely something I will be keeping a close eye on as the Farm Bill progresses. Now, here is the thing. This bill has moved out of the House Agriculture Committee, but it still needs to pass the House of Representatives and the Senate before it could go to the president's desk. There's a lot of procedural stuff that has to happen before this bill could become law. The Farm Bill is currently stuck in the House of Representatives, where it is going to be debated a lot. The Agriculture Committee doesn't have that many people on it, but it took them 11 hours to get through this. I have no idea how long it's going to take in the House. According to some sources, there are certain lawmakers that want to increase SNAP benefits back to the pandemic level amounts because families are still struggling to afford food. I'm sure you can all relate to that. On the other hand, there's another group of lawmakers that think that SNAP is already spending too much money and they want to cut it. And this disagreement has, of course, created a deadlock in the House, which has prevented that bill from moving forward. This delay is concerning for many of you who rely on SNAP benefits and the other programs included in the bill. It's frustrating, but I will keep you posted, of course. Now, even though some reports show that grocery inflation is starting to cool down, which is great, it's still ridiculously hard to buy groceries with SNAP benefits. A new study by the Urban Institute and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation found that SNAP benefits are not enough to pay for a meal in 98% of United States counties. Now, that's based on the per meal rate that SNAP pays, because currently they pay an average maximum benefit of, I think it's like $2.84 a meal, which is about 20 cents less than the actual cost of a modestly priced meal in most areas. Now, 20 cents may not seem like much, but it really adds up when you're eating, 3 meals a day, and then you have maybe a large family with more mouths to feed, or if you have dietary restrictions and you can't eat the sort of modestly priced meal that they think you're eating, it can become very painful. And that's why many state lawmakers are pushing for higher SNAP rates. In fact, state lawmakers in New York have started pushing to increase the minimum SNAP benefit in their state to $100 a month. State Senator Rachel May and Queens Assembly member Jessica Gonzalez Rojas went shopping together in Albany to find out how much $23 a month could buy. Their trip made some very clear points, since they could only buy a handful of things. They are hopeful that this trip will raise awareness and help push the state toward a higher minimum SNAP payment, especially for those seniors who need that extra boost. So now let's talk about those EBT discounts. I really need to cover some good news now. So I get really excited about these because they can help you save a ton of money while also unlocking some incredible adventures for you and your family. For example, the Monterey Bay Aquarium in California recently joined Museums for All. Now, if you've got EBT, you can get free admission for up to 4 people at that aquarium now. Regular admission is around $60 per person. So your EBT card could save you $240 a visit. It's incredible. There are a bunch of new additions to Museums for All this month. Now, I have to warn you, sometimes I find out about it before the people at the museum do. So it can take like a week or two before everyone at the museum is on the same page about what's going on with these discounts. So if you call right away and the front desk doesn't know what you're talking about, don't be too alarmed. It happens to me all the time. Just try back in a week or so when the program is fully implemented and they should know what you're talking about. So anyway, here are the new ones. MoCA in Westport, Connecticut. Children Connect Museum in Noonan, Georgia. Children's Museum of Idaho in Meridian, Idaho. Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens in Booth Bay, Maine, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher some of these names, so I'm just going to apologize right now. Lars Anderson Auto Museum in Brookline, Massachusetts, and there is a ton in Minnesota because it looks like the Minnesota Historical Society joined Museums for All, so there's just a bunch. There's the Alexander Ramsey House in St. Paul, Birch Cooley Battlefield in Morton, Charles Lindbergh House and Museum in Little Falls, Cornstalk House in Moorhead, Folsom House in Taylor's Falls, Forest History Center in Grand Rapids, Fort Ridgely in Fairfax, Gale Family Library in St. Paul, Harkin Store in New Ulm, Historic Forestville in Preston, Historic Fort Snelling in St. Paul, James J. Hill House in St. Paul, Jeffers Petroglyphs in Comfrey, Lac Caparral Mission in Montevideo, Lower Sioux Agency in Morton, Maine Millen Marine on St. Croix, Mill City Museum in Minneapolis, Mille Lacs Indian Museum and Trading Post in Onamia, Minnehaha Depot in Minneapolis, Minnesota History Center in St. Paul, Minnesota State Capitol in St. Paul, Oliver Kelly Farm in Elk River, Sibley Historic Site in Mendota, Snake River Fur Post in Pine City, Split Rock Lighthouse in Two Harbors, Traverse des Sioux in St. Peter, W.W. Mayo House in Le Sueur. Hopefully I didn't say all of that too badly. Now that we're back out of Minnesota again, we also have the Willamette Heritage Center in Salem, Oregon, North Museum of Nature and Science in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Carl Palmer House Museum in Henrico, Virginia, Dabbs House Museum, also in Henrico, Virginia, Deep Run School in Henrico, Virginia, Meadow Farm Museum at Crump Park in Glen Allen, Virginia, Three Lakes Park and Nature Center in Henrico, Virginia, Virginia Randolph Museum in Glen Allen, Virginia, Walworth County Historical Society in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Wow, I did not put that list together very well, did I? Okay, to wrap up our local news section, I also have some bittersweet news for EBT users in Tennessee. If you received your May benefits early, your June benefits have been split in half. The partial payment you received around May 24th was not an extra payment. It was an advance on half of your June benefits. That means you'll get the other half of your June benefits in June, and then things will go back to normal in July. So please be careful with that deposit. For users in Georgia, there's another backlog building up. There are currently over 32,000 SNAP applications and 400 SNAP renewals that are overdue in the state. The Georgia Department of Human Services told 11 Alive News that there is still no timeline to share as to when the backlog will be fully resolved. So if you're affected, please hang in there, find out where your local food banks are, and watch our other videos for more ways that you can get free food. Oh, and if you need help with your EBT application or anything like that, you may want to check your local library. Many libraries have services that can help you apply. In Louisiana, there's a new DCFS initiative that's helping people fill out applications and even complete SNAP interviews at the Algiers Regional Library. And I've seen other programs like that in other states as well, so it's worth checking your local library if you need some help. Now, that's all I've got for you today, but I will be back next week with even more ways that you can save money and get free stuff. Make sure to go check out our other videos.